Welcome to the Monday morning show. That's Ryan G. Hensley. Excuse me. I'm
G.
Grant Lawrence Cohn. What's the G stand for again? No, wait, hold
Oh.
on.
No one's gonna guess it. You got to remember. I told you. I think you're the only
You
one that
told
knows.
me.
I don't know if I want this on Front Street, bro. They're like,
It's none of my. Yes, that's not on me. You have to say it yourself. Let's just say the G stands for none of your damn business.
Yeah.
All right, it was the Kyle Shanahan show today. We got a lot to talk about, Kyle. Ryan's gonna be the voice of reason today. I'm gonna go hard. I'm gonna say things that people probably aren't ready to hear. So my method of saying it is to do it NPR style. When I know I'm going to say something that's going to piss you off about Kyle, I'm just going to whisper it, and I'm going to make sure they're all calm, and that I'm not trying to piss you off. Or I'm going to whisper the controversial shit. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great, man. Fantastic. Yeah, I'm ready for training camp though. Training camp would be nice. I'm looking forward to that.
I gotta say, when there's like no football going on, like this time of the year, I don't know what to do with myself. Like I don't even know who I am anymore. Like I have I'm so happy that we have a show today and it's Monday. Like, geez, weekends are tough, man. I'm just like looking out in my backyard, trying to think, who am I today? Anyway,
yeah.
Let's talk. Let's get to Kyle, but like let's go in a roundabout way. There was a really interesting stat posted by Sharp. What's that dude's name? Warren Sharp. Sharp Analytics.
Warren Sapp.
Warren Sapp? Warren Sharp. Not the football player.
It's Warren Sapp.
The football player?
Football player, yeah.
Hey, Warren Sapp. Okay, I already messed it up, so why don't you take it from here?
Yeah, so basically, Warren Sapp posted a statistic online in regards to teams.
No, it's Warren Sharp.
Is it Warren Sharp?
It's Warren Sharp. Sharp football. All right, it's Warren Sharp. We got that right. Here it is.
Oh, I messed it up. I thought Warren Sapp always posts these great statistics. So
no, it's Warren Sharp. You've been thinking it was Warren Sapp the whole time, but it's a white guy and he's got like a mustache.
Not Warren Sapp. A little different. Yeah. So
anyway,
but Warren Sapp does post great statistics. Warren Sharp says he listed like the NFL, the percentage of drives that score points when they were losing in the second half. Top of that list are your Cincinnati Bengals, Kansas City Chiefs. They're really good at scoring. If they're down in the second half, they're the top two in the NFL. And the 49ers are towards the bottom. They're tied with Pittsburgh all the way at the bottom. The only teams worse were like the Jets, Chicago, Arizona, Denver, Philly, Rams. Philly was weird. Philly's
very
like the outlier.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. That is interesting. That is not a fluke. I feel like all those teams are built to score early, take a lead, and then win with their D lines. I think they're built that way. That's very interesting. Yeah.
You would think that Philly wouldn't be on this list because they do have Jalen Hurts. But maybe there's a little bit of maybe the Jalen Hurts story isn't what we think it is. Maybe it's
possible.
It's based around this roster, their ability to score quickly.
They have the best offensive line in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, they're always winning. When they're winning, they're really tough to come back against, as the Niners saw, because now you're trying to drop back against that D line. I would ask though, like, how often was Philly even trailing in the second half? Really?
That's a good point.
Did that even happen last year? It may have happened. I mean, it might have happened a little bit, but they barely lost. Probably the same thing with the Niners. But I think what's so important about this is if you're going to be a team that beats the Chiefs, the one team that's really had some success against the Chiefs in the playoffs is Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And both those are the teams that can score the quickest from any point in the game. You're down 3 touchdowns, you're down 10 points. Who cares? I can score really fast. Chiefs did it against the Eagles. They did it against the Niners. They were down 10 in the second half of both of those games. And they're like, meanwhile, if Kyle's down like 3 points in the second half,
yikes. Yeah, I mean, and then third on the list was the Bills. So if you look at these top 3 teams, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Buffalo Bills, what do they have in common? Elite quarterbacks. Elite quarterbacks, right?
Yep.
And so it shows you that those 3 teams, those 3 quarterbacks, when the chips are down and they need to come back and win the game, that elite quarterback comes into play.
Yeah. And that's why you need one, because there are teams in the league that have them, that also have good rosters. Well, meanwhile, the Niners are trying to talk themselves into, the last pick in the draft being good enough for them. And while he might be to a point, they're never going to have this type of a quick strike offense in the second half, down points against good defenses that they need.
And that's been the argument that people like you and I have been making for for a while now. At least I know I have, man. I've seen you've been making it as well. It's just without, like, when you go to the playoffs and you play these really good teams, you can't do the things that you did in the regular season versus these mediocre teams. You have to be able to fight your way back, come back, score when you're down. And, we saw the 49ers try to do it with Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl, and they were unable to. And so this is the thing that's been missing from the 49ers: offensive line, elite quarterback play. This is what's been missing, and this is what scares me about going into this season as well, to be honest.
And like, it's how the Niners are built. It's not, I don't think it's something they can necessarily overcome. It's just something that they live with. The right center, right guard, right tackle are all there for what they do as run blockers. They don't really value pass protection. The Niners aren't super invested in quarterback. They are a team that's built to get a lead, run the ball. Like, their offense, no matter how much talent they put on their offense, because of their offensive line, their quarterback, their offense is complementary. It's all about chewing up the clock.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding? The best offenses in the league aren't about chewing up the clock. If you have McCaffrey, Deebo, Ayuk, Kittle, and all these, you should be able to just say, it doesn't matter how much time we have the ball. We're going to score 40 this week. We're just going to score 40 and you're going to lose. That's the kind of stuff Kansas City can do. The Niners should be able to do it, but because of their O-line and quarterback play, their offense is secondary. Crazy.
Particularly the drop back passing game, right? Like, in these situations when you're down, you have to be able to drop back and pass, right? And if you don't have the offensive line to protect the quarterback, or the quarterback that's able to do that, or a coach or an offense in general that's used to doing it, that's one of the things. Like, I know I'm no Jimmy Garoppolo defender, but if you never ask a quarterback to do something until the most important moment of his career in the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we need to score quickly. It's not really fair to Jimmy Garoppolo, if I'm being honest, right? This is why I say it's so important that the 49ers incorporate this throughout the season, so it's part of their offense. So they're all used to doing it: the receivers, tight ends, the offensive line, and particularly the quarterback. It has to be, 2 to 4 times a game they got to take deep shots. They got to be able to just take a drop back pass, right? They don't really do that.
And what's crazy is it's never been easier to drop back and pass in the NFL. All the rules benefit the offense. I mean, yeah, D-lines are really good, but you can't touch the quarterback. You can't touch the wide receivers. You can't breathe on them.
Yeah.
You should be able to drop back and pass, but Kyle is sort of stuck in his dad's scheme, which was really built in the 90s, during an era with totally different rules, where a run game could really protect your quarterback from getting blown up. Like, Steve Young got blown up. A big reason Steve Young took so many hits is the Niners didn't have consistent running back play in the mid 90s after Ricky Waters. A lot has changed since then.
Yeah.
And I feel like Kyle, even though he's looked at as being cutting edge, like, the principles of his offense are kind of conservative. Like, we run the ball.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, your commitment to running the ball, which is super noble, puts your quarterback in peril late in the season when you fall behind and have to throw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing is, we look at, like, I bring this stat up all the time, but the last 4 or 5 Super Bowl winners had over 4,000 yards passing during the season, 40-plus touchdown passes during the season, right? So they're used to doing it throughout the season. They're able to do it throughout the season, and good things happen when you attack deep down the sidelines. It either goes out of bounds most of the time, or you connect, which is great, or it's a pass interference, and you get 40, 50 yards without doing anything.
And even if you don't even throw it, but they know that you can do it and they respect it, then you back off the defense. You create space.
Yeah.
And like, with the playmakers the Niners have, the guys who can get yards after the catch, if you had a quarterback who could, and an offensive line, it's because it's not just the quarterback, it's the offensive line too, that could actually threaten defenses like every blade of grass, then you wouldn't need Kyle Shanahan and his genius. They'd just be scoring a bunch of points because you can't defend all of that. But you can, because the ball comes out quick and the quarterback doesn't get the ball on the field. So it's like, I call it a tennis court. Yeah. The Niners play offense on a tennis court.
Well,
they do.
I mean, people got mad at me for saying Brock Purdy was dink and dunk. And it's really just Kyle Shanahan's offense is dink and dunk. And I don't know if it's because of Brock Purdy necessarily as much as it is just the way that he designs his offense. It's all dink and dunk. Now, maybe if you had a quarterback that could extend.
That's what John Gruden was like.
Right.
That's what John Gruden was like. And to me, that's like a hallmark of a micromanager. Like, I don't trust you to throw the ball more than 5 yards. Yeah. Like, I'm going to give you stuff that I could do, essentially. Don't mess it up. That's the kind of the attitude that Gruden had back in the day, and I think Kyle has. Like, man, it's not that hard. Don't mess it up. It's like, thanks for the vote of confidence, coach. And thanks for being such a micromanager and telling me where to throw and how to throw and what to think and how to feel and all that.
And
but other than that, I love you.
Kyle started in your position as quality control for our Buccaneers, John Gruden. So maybe a little bit of that wore off on him.
Yeah, a lot of people compare Kyle to his dad, but really, I mean, the guys who groomed him in the NFL, that's a strange word to use, but yeah, they groomed him. John Gruden, Gary Kubiak, those two.
Yeah.
What quarterbacks did they ever develop? Rich Gannon, late, Matt Shaw, like those kind of guys. And that's the kind of guys that Kyle likes. Brian Greasy. Yeah. You know, the backups that the rest of the league didn't appreciate. Like, sweet. I mean, there's a place for those guys, but they're not elite.
What's funny about Kyle is, like, you know, he's tied to Chris Sims. That was I think that was the second quarterback he worked with. The first quarterback he ever worked with was Brian Greasy. So it's funny. That's where those ties come from way back in the day. Yeah.
Papa Phil says Harbaugh always put quarterback and O-line first. Good head coaches do.
I mean, it's the most important two positions.
I would agree. Yeah. Mui says, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm going to go with Mui. Says, you never know what's going to happen in any season, but I really don't know what's going to happen this season because of the quarterback, loss of talent, new DC. Yeah, tougher schedule too. But they have McCaffrey. I mean, they're such a good team.
Yeah.
You could say on paper they should be expected to win the Super Bowl. You could say that. If you believe in Brock, if you believe in McKivitz. All right, let's talk about this. Has Kyle Shanahan discovered and developed a quarterback? He's an offensive genius. He gets a lot of credit. Has he done this, though?
So I've looked through everything, and I don't see anybody that he has discovered. Maybe he's discovered. I don't know. When he went over to Houston, at the same time he was made the quarterback coach, that's when they traded for Matt Schaub, or that's when they signed.
Yeah, but Gary Kubiak was a quarterback and a quarterback coach. I would have to give Gary Kubiak some credit for that.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know who's responsible. Like,
Matt Schaub.
Yeah,
he wasn't that good.
Kyle was like, I want Matt Schaub. I've never heard any reports.
Even when Schaub was putting up numbers, he was not that good.
Right.
No,
right.
I'm sorry. No, it was the scheme.
His first year with Kyle, he was 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. They went 8-8. Second year, he did get improved, 29 touchdowns, 15. Or his first year is 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. They were 8-8. Second year, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 8-8. Third year, he did improve, 29 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. One thing about Kyle, I will say, is I think he, just like right now,
they didn't even go to the playoffs, though. Just saying,
they did not.
But that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there.
One thing about Kyle that he does do well is that he dials up receivers wide open. So it's possible he's putting
play action.
Yeah, he's putting quarterbacks in easy passing situations for the dink and dunk passing game.
Yeah.
And so he does have that, but did he?
But real quick, like that play action stuff, isn't that like first half, first down, second down, early in the game? You know what I mean? Like when you're down 10 in the second half, it's like no one's going to react to your run fakes, but keep going
because no drop back passing game, right?
Right, but it works because they have the number one defense, so they're not losing by 10 in the second half very much.
Right. If he can get up in front of you, run the ball, control the clock, hold you on defense, he's going to win you a lot of ball games.
Beat you up.
Yes, but if you tell any of his quarterbacks, any of his teams, go out and win the game. We're down by 10. We need to just attack in the passing game. He's never shown that.
And it's like, why did he call that deep shot on the first drive of the game against Philly? Well, they were down 7.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like he knows that both of those teams are built to play from ahead.
Yes,
Philly got the lead first for 2 reasons. Kyle deferred on the road because he always does, and then he didn't challenge the 4th down. He could have got the ball back 0-0, but he didn't. Down 7. I think he got. I'm not going to say he panicked, but I think he got a little nervous and was like, "I can't. We got to even the game up right now. Right now.
You know, and
we're not built to play from behind. Neither are they."
It's a strange thing, honestly, because it's not their trademark. Maybe they should have just stuck with what they're usually doing because that's what they're used to. Again, they're not used to doing the drop back pass game, and that was a play action, right? So.
Come back to our original point. How do you actually develop a quarterback if you're not really protecting him or emphasizing drop back passing? If it's all play action, then it's all you, Kyle.
Yeah.
It's all you. It's all these schemed up plays on first and second down, but really where quarterbacks make their money and show that they're elite are the things they do on third down and in the red zone. And that's why people like Brock Purdy. Is because when your plays don't necessarily work, instead of, Jimmy who just like throws an interception and says it's your fault Kyle. Like Brock holds onto the ball and runs around and makes something happen on his own. We all like that. And your number one coaching point was to stop doing that so much. Of course it was, Kyle. Of course it was. That's what we don't like about you.
Yeah, it's definitely
respectfully.
Concerning. Yeah. I mean, moving forward, after that, he went to Washington. I just read that article in regards to Donovan.
He discovered Kirk Cousins. We'll give him that.
Well, before that, Donovan McNabb and him had that big clash, right? I think we talked about that, or I think I talked about on my show, but Donovan McNabb and him had problems. I guess it's apparently Donovan McNabb had the best drive of the season for Washington, and it's because he went off script. And Kyle Shanahan, immediately after the best drive of the season, was quoted as saying, "He'll never take another snap from me again."
Yeah. Wow.
Because he went off script.
Wow. Guy had been to so many Pro Bowls and like, wow, okay. Yeah. And he was like 30, Kyle. Younger than McNabb. Yeah. Let's go to Cousins for a second because that's Kyle's crown jewel. Kyle wanted him earlier in the draft and was adamant about taking him. And Kirk Cousins has become a perennial Pro Bowl quarterback. But so he discovered Kirk for sure. Did he develop Kirk? He had Kirk for like
4 games.
2 years. 2 years.
Games. 4 games.
4 games. 4 games, right? Kind of like with Trey. And his numbers were awful. Worse than Trey's. So to me, it's kind of like, let's say Trey leaves the Niners, goes somewhere else, plays well. Would Kyle get credit for developing Trey? Because that's kind of what happened with Kirk. Kyle left. Sean McVay becomes the offensive coordinator, and all of a sudden Kirk takes off. So I would look at that as Sean McVay developing Kirk Cousins, not Kyle. Just like someone else might develop Trey Lance, but not Kyle.
You can't call Kirk Cousins being developed by Kyle Shanahan in 4 games. And honestly, the quarterback that played the best for him in Washington was RG3, and that's apparently who he wanted, right? And he definitely didn't develop RG3. He kind of ruined his career.
Ruined him. Ran him too much, which foreshadowed his tenure as a head coach. Because really, when he was with Washington, it kind of seemed like he was the head coach. Like Mike was like, "Hey man, Kyle, whatever you want to do, I'm not going to say no." And they had a lot of the same issues they're having now. He's having now as head coach.
Yes.
When he was in Atlanta and Houston, he was not the head coach. There was some oversight, and wow, the quarterback stayed healthy. Funny how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about Matt Ryan, here's the thing: is like people always say that he developed him into an MVP quarterback, and he was good.
Multiple Pro Bowls.
He's been multiple Pro Bowls. I mean, the year that they went to the Pro Bowl, he had 4,944 yards, 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, which was good. They went to the Super Bowl, biggest Super Bowl loss comeback in history, right? But the season before that, Kyle Shanahan got there. He got there in 2015, 21 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, 4,500 yards. But even the season before he got there, he actually had more yards and more touchdowns and less interceptions than when Kyle Shanahan got there. In 2014, Matt Ryan had 4,694 yards, 28 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. So he actually had a better year than the season when Kyle Shanahan first got there in 2016. And then the following year, he did play well. But, I mean, they had a ton of weapons in Atlanta. So he definitely didn't discover Matt Ryan. He did put him in a good position that Super Bowl year to win the game, but he kind of blew it in the Super Bowl, unfortunately. So I don't know if we say he developed Matt Ryan because Matt Ryan was already thrown for 4,000 plus yards before Kyle Shanahan got there.
Did he develop Jimmy Garoppolo?
Into what?
That's what I'm saying. Like Jimmy Garoppolo spent a lot of years with Josh McDaniels. He came here, had success right away. Like, was that McDaniels who developed him? And then he got steadily worse as time went on with the 49ers. So where was Kyle Shanahan's great coaching there?
He put him in I feel like to me with Jimmy Garoppolo, he definitely didn't discover him. Obviously, that's Bill Belichick that discovered Jimmy G, and then John Lynch is the one that really went hard in the paint for him. Obviously, you can give Kyle a little credit for that, but Jimmy looked better when he first got to the 49ers. As time went on, he became more of just a game manager, dink and dunker, scared to do anything. It looked like there was no trust between Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think he developed him into a better quarterback. I think he just put him in situations where he could just dink and dunk and have a high completion percentage, yak yards, let your weapons take off and run, but didn't necessarily make him a better drop back quarterback.
His best play was before he knew the 49ers playbook. That was his best performance that year. In 2017, came in, didn't know the playbook, went out on instinct, played well, kind of like Brock.
Yeah.
That was his best time. He got steadily less confident, more indecisive. Kyle couldn't keep him healthy, couldn't keep himself healthy. That was his big project. He had Jimmy for 5 years or more.
Yeah.
And the guy did not get better. He got worse and couldn't stay healthy. So I just don't see Kyle Shanahan having this like, he coached Matt Ryan for 2 years. He coached Kirk Cousins for 2 years. Like he's never done it long-term with anyone. The only guy he really had long-term was Jimmy, and we all see how that went. So
Yeah.
I think the answer is no. A lot of people, and then people will counter with, well, which head coach really does develop a quarterback anyway? And why are we, this is an unfair standard to hold. It's like, hold on. If Kyle had done it, you'd give him credit for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They answer the question with a question instead of just
come
give me the
on.
answer. Yeah, just give me
Yeah,
the
man.
answer.
When Kyle either gets credit for everything, or if he can't take credit for something, people will be like, well, no one can really do that. Like, yeah. I think they can.
Bill Walsh did it 3 times. Andy Reid's done it. I mean, Pete Carroll's done it. There's a lot of great coaches that have done
a
it.
lot of coaches can like identify a talented quarterback and keep him healthy and play to his strengths and minimize his weaknesses, all that.
Yeah.
Hero Winchester says, recently more players, fans, and other content creators are calling you out for your takes. Really? Who called me out? Do you think it's fair to hold reporters accountable for their takes in today's age, or are they above reproach? Of course. I mean, reporters are always held accountable. It's a public forum, and all of our stuff is on the record with our name next to it.
No one's above
in
reproach.
perpetuity.
Yeah, no one's above reproach, even coaches.
Correct. Khalil Kemp says, I believe Kyle Shanahan can't scout the quarterback position for one simple reason. When he's in his office looking at film, he's not watching the player. He's watching for his scheme. No, he's actually watching himself throw spirals. You know that?
I think Kyle's very wide receiver focused. Even though he's not a drop back passing game, he just really looks at the offense from like these short wide receiver routes, getting them wide open. That's really what he really focuses on. It's not the run game necessarily, even though he gets a lot of credit for the run game. It's really these short receiving routes that make Kyle Shanahan good at what he does.
Right. And I think also to Khalil's point, when he's looking at quarterbacks, or when he's thinking about the quarterback for his system, he's thinking about, what do I need? Not necessarily like who's a transcendent talent that I could build around. He needs a guy who's comfortable being under center, turning his back to the defense and doing play action. If you won't do that, Kyle won't budge. So that kind of limits you right there, because how many colleges really do that anymore? Fewer and fewer.
And I'm honestly, I am worried about Brock Purdy because, you saw what happened with Jimmy. When he started with us, he seemed very free. And you saw the frustration between him and Kyle. It came out with like things like your play sucked. And in the press conferences afterwards, where he just said he wants to play free. And it was kind of like just calling out Kyle. I mean, it was after they tried to trade him, right? And he's in the press conference saying he wants to play free. And then you hear the quotes about what they're trying to do with Brock Purdy, make him play within the scheme of the offense more and take away what he was good at. I'm worried that they're going to just hinder Brock Purdy in year 2 or as he goes along. And, this, I don't want you doing this off script stuff. If you would have just done what I said within the scheme of the offense, you would have been able to pass to so-and-so and we would have got, that's what I worry about. And McNabb, same thing with McNabb. The same thing McNabb said. He said he's not going to cater to the offense around the quarterback and his strengths. He wants you to play within his system. And if you do something off script, it's not good.
And that's crazy to me. Like coaching is playing to your player's strengths every time. That's all it is in every sport. And Kyle doesn't do that. His scheme is so special that you have to cater to his scheme. And he wonders why he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. But a lot of people think it's coming. We'll see. Brian Lester says, if Kyle Shanahan was fired today, who would you and Ryan choose to replace him? Brian, that's kind of an unfair question because no one fires a head coach in June. The hiring cycle is already over. All the candidates are hired. It's something you do in January or December. So we'll talk about where we rank Kyle Shanahan, but if you want to replace a coach, you kind of have to do it at a specific time in the year. No one's available right now.
I'd have to go through the interview process, Brian. I need to sit down and talk to these gentlemen.
Bang Bang says, just want to put this out there during the Monday Night Football game versus the Rams. I saw Jed and Adam Schefter talking for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it makes sense. They both worked for NFL Network at some point, right?
No, Jed. Jed York and Adam Schefter. Talking for 15 minutes. Thank you, Bang Bang. Wow. Mui says, also, this regime was once reputed to be tight-lipped. Suddenly, there's leaks all over the place. Could mean the start of power division instability. Not a good sign.
No. They leak.
A lot of covering their asses.
The whole they don't leak thing is not true.
Over. Kyle is Red Bolio from The Waterboy. Can't do anything without his stolen inherited scheme. Purdy play will not be the same next season because of Kyle. That is messed up. He stole the Fonz's playbook. Jaleel D says, man, I missed the call-in show, Ryan.
Every Sunday.
Come on, dog. Come on, Jaleel. All right, let's do it. How many head coaches are better than Kyle Shanahan? I want to rank them. And I put out I have a list down right here of all the coaches I would put ahead of him. Preamble first. Ranking Kyle Shanahan is very hard because he wears a lot of hats for the 49ers. He does a lot. He does everything. But we're ranking head coaches. I want to make that clear. So as a coordinator, I think he would rank clearly, offensive coordinator, I think he would rank clearly top 5. You could argue he's number 2 behind Andy Reid, right? You could argue he's number 2. He's been the coordinator of the year. He's very clever. As a coordinator, very, very high.
Yeah.
He also gets credit for putting his team together because he's basically the general manager of this team. So in certain ways, he gets a lot of credit for that too. I'm not talking about that today. I'm talking just head coach, which is funny because there's a lot of responsibilities for head coaches. I mean, it's the big picture here. But that's what I'm looking at. And maybe different people look at different grade head coaches differently, but that's how I'm looking at it.
Well, I thought I kind of looked at this differently than ranking them. I looked at who I would replace him with if I could. But if we're ranking him,
same thing. I would replace him with someone better, and I think I have a bunch of guys that I would.
Okay, how do you want to do this?
You could say your list, and then I'll just keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm replacing him right now with any head coach that I could, I only got 5, but I actually have more than that ranked higher than him, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want Bill Belichick to come into the 49ers right now. I just don't want that. But I do think Bill Belichick is or should be ranked way higher than Kyle Shanahan, if that makes sense. Like, I look at Kyle Shanahan not anywhere close to Bill Belichick's level, but I also don't want Bill Belichick on the 49ers right now.
Why?
I don't know. I think a lot of this is Tom Brady.
Okay.
I do. But here's the coaches.
Okay.
that
I don't quite understand the distinction, but I'm not going to fight you on it. And you get the floor. Go ahead.
I'll explain it better afterwards.
Okay.
But if I could replace him with any coaches right now, I would go with Mike Tomlin. He's one of my favorite head coaches. Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, and either of the Harbaughs. Those are the guys I would replace him with right now, no question. Okay. Now, the reason why I wouldn't even though I think Bill Belichick is better, he has to be looked at better than Kyle Shanahan just because of what he's been able to accomplish throughout his career with Tom Brady. I'm not a big fan of Bill Belichick as a coach, as a leader. I don't like I don't like his persona. I don't enjoy it. It's like Kyle Shanahan on steroids. And so I would just assume just go with Kyle right now. And I want to see what Bill Belichick can do without Tom Brady. That's the thing I'm holding off.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right, let me do the way I'm looking at it. So to me, again, Kyle's complicated. He put this roster together, so he gets credit for that. But I'm taking that away. I'm separating that. Since 2019, the Niners have had arguably the best team in the league, and they have not won a Super Bowl in that 4-year span. They've had some excuses, but I think a lot of coaches would have won a Super Bowl with this roster the last 4 years. A lot of them. And that's why I think Kyle's kind of an average head coach. Like, before I start listing names, the year that Kyle should have won a Super Bowl in my mind, I was thinking about it this morning. 2019, they lose to the Chiefs. Somewhat understandable considering the Chiefs were better than them. The Niners were great, but the Chiefs were better. They had Patrick Mahomes. Next year, they have a bunch of injuries. 2021, they lose in the NFC Championship game to the Rams. They were better than the Rams that year. They beat the Rams 6 in a row. They beat them twice in the regular season. They beat them week 18 in LA. You lost to the Rams in the NFC Championship game 20-17. Your defense showed up. Everyone blames Tart for losing that game. It wasn't Tart's fault. The offense scored 17 points against the Rams. You should have won the Super Bowl that year. You had the best player in the league. You didn't give him any touches in the last 13 minutes of that game. Then the Rams go on and beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl 23-20. Like, that's a weak champion. The Niners had beaten both of those teams in the regular season. I'm thinking a lot of other coaches could have won the Super Bowl with the Niners in 2021. You lost to the Rams? McVay should not have a ring. Kyle should have a ring, but he blew it. That was the one. And losing to the Eagles, I thought the Eagles were better than them, but the Niners are better than the Rams in 2021. You freaking blew it. So I'm hard on Kyle as a head coach. I think he's average. I think he's an excellent offensive coordinator. I think he does a lot of good things as a personnel guy too. But as a head coach, Bill Belichick would have won a Super Bowl with this team in the last 4 years. Pete Carroll would have. Andy Reid would have. Sean Payton would have. Sean McVay would have. Mike Tomlin would have. John Harbaugh would have. Doug Peterson would have. Brian Daboll would have. Nick Sirianni. Zach Taylor. Mike freaking McCarthy would have. I'm starting to think Dan Campbell would have as well. And I'm interested about Shane Steichen. He hasn't done a damn thing yet. But like, I'll go slow. Like, look what Dan Campbell has done with Jared Goff. Resurrected his career, keeps him healthy. I mean, that guy went from 3 wins to 9 wins. That guy could be in the Super Bowl this year. I mean, that team is nice. Mike McCarthy, yeah, he's a joke, but he also coexisted with Aaron Rodgers for like 10 years. Could Kyle do that? He actually like won a Super Bowl one time with a loaded roster. Kyle's had a loaded roster for 4 years. Hasn't gotten it done.
Do you think he could have? Do you think these coaches you said could win the Super Bowl, that they could have done that with Jimmy Garoppolo though?
But I don't know. I mean, maybe, because Jimmy Garoppolo came really close. As weak as he is on this team, I think it comes down a lot to just pass protection. Kyle doesn't value pass protection. When his quarterbacks have a clean pocket, whoever they are, Nick Mullins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, whoever the hell it is, they tear it up. But they don't have clean pockets enough, especially down the stretch, because the right side of the offensive line is a freaking sieve. It's only a run blocking unit. And when they went into the fourth quarter against the Chiefs, their offensive line crumbled against Chris Jones. When they got in the fourth quarter against the Rams, their offensive line crumbled against Aaron Donald. When they got in the first quarter against the Eagles, their offensive line crumbled. So I feel like Kyle Shanahan, if he's a coordinator and there's a head coach who says, no, you know what? I value pass protection, he can work. But if he's the head coach, he's made it abundantly clear he's going to work around that. And his quarterbacks are going to get hurt all the time, and he's going to make snarky comments like, well, I'm really sorry his head bounced off the turf. Well, yeah, I'm sorry that you don't value pass protection. He doesn't. From a schematic standpoint, putting Tyler Kroft on Hassan Reddick, to a personnel standpoint, saving money at the offensive line position. That's a big problem for a head coach. And that's why I feel like his formula is flawed.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, those coaches probably would never have had that offensive line or Jimmy Garoppolo. That's probably what would have been the difference.
No.
Yeah, I think
Kyle's messing around. It's like Moneyball stuff. It's like, I can do it with Jimmy. I can do it with Mike McGlinchey. No.
Yeah, I don't think I think it's going to be hard to win a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, no matter who the head coach is, to be honest. But to your point, I think a lot of these head coaches that you're talking about would have not been in that situation in the first place.
Right. Like, it's going to be hard to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's why I almost give Kyle a pass for blowing it against the Chiefs. Like, your offense blew it, your defense blew it. The Chiefs are better than you. Patrick Mahomes, like, you weren't going to get in the way of that train. But,
why is he there?
The Rams, but also, why is he there? But, like, again, let's take the personnel stuff out of it. You lost to the Rams? You beaten them 6 in a row. They weren't that freaking good. They had no run game. Matthew Stafford isn't Patrick Mahomes. Cooper Kupp isn't Deebo Samuel. You had the best player in that game. You didn't give him the ball in the last 13 minutes. Like, that's tough. And I don't think people really give Kyle a hard time for that particular loss, but that's the clear one they should have won. 2021, they should have won the Super Bowl.
It seems like this all comes back to the same thing. Matt Stafford is better than Jimmy Garoppolo, man. And he just is. Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, but there's one more thing, though. McVay's better than Kyle. You know why? Because McVay went and got Stafford, and Kyle was like, oh, man, I got to look at his tape a little bit more.
Yeah. And he
McVay's better than him.
Passed on Brady for Jimmy. Yeah.
Now. Kyle's a better coordinator than McVay, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
But head coach? McVay. Because McVay is a head coach. Kyle isn't. Kyle is not a head coach. Now, there's a lot of bad head coaches in the NFL, too. That's what I want to say. So if I would rank him essentially 14th or 15th in the league, which might sound harsh, I'm taking every single head coach who's ever won a Super Bowl over him that's still working, and guys such as Daboll, Sirianni, Zach Taylor, Dan Campbell, guys who are having success with quarterbacks right now, resurrecting their careers, keeping them healthy. I'm taking those guys all day. Brian Daboll, what he did with Daniel Jones in 1 year, Kyle could never.
I have Kyle because of his offensive coordinating abilities. I have him between like 6th and 8th.
Fair. Because one of the things that when you have Kyle Shanahan as a head coach, you get Kyle Shanahan as a coordinator coming with him. Good point.
Yeah.
It's true.
My ideal coaching situation is Mike Tomlin, head coach, Andy Reid, offensive coordinator. Second one would be Mike Tomlin, head coach, and Kyle Shanahan, offensive coordinator. But as far as like overall head coach, I have him like between like 6th and 8th.
What I think is funny is that people say, like, if only Kyle would have some oversight. If only someone could tell Kyle, hey, I disagree with you. Man, he's the head coach and general manager, and like no. The only way that happens is if he's the offensive coordinator. And I think it's no secret that his best year was in 2016 as an offensive coordinator with Dan Quinn. I think what's interesting about that particular loss, because that's the biggest collapse ever, essentially, ever. Why did they lose? Well, a lot of people say, well, Kyle wasn't the head coach of that team. True. Dan Quinn was. He's not a head coach either. The Falcons essentially had a failure of leadership in the second half of that game. 2 non-head coaches on the field being like, man, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. What do we do? It's not my fault. Oh, Bill Belichick's a leader, though.
Yeah.
He worked it out. So that's why I feel like getting that one ring, the hardware to prove that that you won't get in the way, that you won't blow it at the last minute. Kyle hasn't proven that he won't blow it at the last minute. He's had some great teams. So I think until he gets that hardware, I can't put him in the top 8, 9.
If we're being fair, he's proven that he will blow it in the last minute. Unfortunately,
what are his excuses the last 4 years? Jimmy, you wanted Jimmy. Yeah. The offensive line, that's your offensive line. Like, you lost to the Rams, man. The Rams. You own them, right? Yeah. McVay's your son, right? But you lost to him. How did that happen, man? How did you not get the ball to Deebo in the last 13 minutes of that game? How did that happen?
He loses his mind at the end of these games. He panics. He doesn't just play to his strengths. He doesn't have that, like, killer instinct at the end of these games. And
the lights are too bright for him. The stage is too big.
And he just can't figure out the quarterback position. It's that simple, man. Really. Those are the 2 things that hurt him.
I think it's more he can't figure out the quarterback position. Yeah, in the sense that in a lot of ways, but also even if he could figure it out, he couldn't protect it. And that's the wild thing about him. Like, even if you gave him Aaron Rodgers, he'd be hurt. We keep seeing this, man. As long as he's the head coach, his quarterback's going to be hurt pretty damn quick. And he's going to have a bunch of his followers and fans being like, it's not Kyle's fault. It's not, is it Kyle's fault that he called a pass? How many times we hear that? Oh, is he just supposed to call a run every play? You hear that every time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand why people say, oh, it's football. People get hurt. And yes, that's true. But when you look at, the history of Kyle Shanahan, I mean, there's a pattern. It's obvious. You can't really deny it. There's something going on there. I think it's a matter of prioritizing protection.
Yes.
It's just not prioritizing protection
in any way.
You're not. You're right.
It's not.
Not with your offensive line, not with your scheme. You're not prioritizing it. I mean, why would you think that Tyler Kroft was going to be able to stop on the Eagle? Why would you think that?
Why would you think
that? That's not logical.
Risk reward. And what's crazy, like, look at Seattle. They never have quarterback injury issues, like in Pete Carroll's entire tenure. Yeah. Is it because their offensive line is great? No. Their offensive line is trash most of the time. Now it's young and improving, but a lot of the times it's freaking trash. No, it's a lot how you call your plays, what you emphasize, when you're passing, all that kind of stuff. Like Kyle always has 5 guys out in the pattern. He doesn't do max protect very much, although he did on that one with Tyler Kroft. Anyway, there's a lot of things you can do as a coach to prioritize pass protection. Yeah. And Kyle thinks it's the player's fault. It's the quarterback's job. So
yeah, it has to be up there. It can't just be like, okay, how can I get a guy wide open, or how can I get a first down? It has to also be like, how can I protect my quarterback while doing these things?
Yeah. So that's where I rank Kyle as a head coach. I mean, if you want to talk about him as a head coach, you really need to look at the quarterback position, because that's his responsibility. Getting it right, keeping it upright. Getting it right, keeping it upright. Like, that's a huge thing. You like John Harbaugh. I mean, he's had Lamar. He didn't mess around. These guys, good coaches have good quarterbacks.
And we were talking about, like, what quarterbacks has he discovered and developed. Mm-hmm. He really, I don't know if you can say he discovered Brock Purdy, but he did discover Trey Lance. So if he develops Trey Lance, he can take credit for that one. If he develops Brock Purdy, he can say he developed him, but he's not really the guy responsible for discovering Brock Purdy.
But also, like, his ability to get big numbers out of Brock Purdy or Jimmy Garoppolo or whichever, borderline talent does speak well of him as a coordinator to me.
Yeah.
But then the inability to keep that guy on the field does not speak well of him as a head coach. Yeah. Because the coordinator should be able to say, like, here's my great idea. Let's go score points. And the head coach says, no, that's risky. I don't like the risk. I don't like the matchup on that. The coach is the one who's like, but Kyle's a coordinator. I like it. I like it. That's why he's complicated.
I mean, and people, they want to talk about like what it's not his fault, but there is a video of Kyle Shanahan admitting that when you run a quarterback through the middle, it's extremely dangerous and you're going to get him killed. And then he went on to do that with Trey Lance, and that's exactly what happened.
So why'd you call that?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, like Kyle has a stacked team, and he put it together. He gets credit for it, but let's not act like since 2019 he hasn't had Nick Bosa on a rookie contract the whole time.
Yeah.
He also had Fred Warner, Eric Armstead, Dre Greenlaw, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Kyle Juszczyk. That's quite a 7-man unit.
All right.
And, great that you went to 3 NFC championship games, but I feel like other head coaches could have sealed the deal. A lot of head coaches could have beat that Rams team in the NFC championship game 2 years ago with Deebo on the field. It doesn't take a genius to say, let me get out of the way and give Deebo the ball and let him be the reason we win this game.
Yeah.
Let's let Deebo be the reason we win this game. No, it had to be Kyle. And so you didn't win, and then it was Jimmy's fault that you lost.
I mean, look at the Falcons Super Bowl collapse. I mean, that was the epitome of like you're trying to do too much, man. You're trying to like just run the ball out. You're up 21 points. Yeah. It was a mistake.
So a lot of bad head coaches in the NFL. Kyle's not one of them. I think he's average. I think he's a hell of a coordinator. If you separate him, I don't like the way he handles the quarterback position at all. Pass protection is such an oversight with him. And for that to be your oversight as an offensive coach, pass protection.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Well, I mean, I'll put it this way. Like, this is a good way to put it. Like, if he's not the offensive coordinator, he drops way down to me as a
correct.
Head coach.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. But if
if he's like, look, I'm just going to focus on my leadership this year. Yeah, and I'm going to delegate all game planning and play calling and like, the best version of Kyle's gone. Now we just got this average coach with average leadership ability, average game management, average decision making.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I've really never looked at it in that regard. I always look at the other way.
That's what I'm trying to look at it. I'm trying to isolate.
Yeah. If you take that's why I think he drops down. Yeah.
He drops down. But again, if you get him, you get the offensive coordinator with him, and having an elite offensive coordinator come with your head coach is a bonus. So maybe I should factor that in. I'm just saying, like Zach Taylor, people scoff at him like, okay, but he was a quarterback. He keeps his quarterback healthy except for that one hit that Joe Burrow took. I don't know. I think he's doing a pretty good job. Shane Steichen. Look what Nick Sirianni's done with Jalen Hurts. Like, I don't know, man. Doug Peterson, he won a Super Bowl, got fired. I mean, I think Doug Peterson's going to win a Super Bowl again before Kyle does. Maybe I'm wrong.
I like what
he's in a good spot right now in Jacksonville.
I like what they're doing in Jacksonville, and I really like Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that was a no-brainer. That was a no-brainer quarterback pick for me. I think he's going to be really good, man. So he's in a good spot.
Last thing before we move on, I looked this up. Josh Dubow looked it up, but only 8 of the last 26 Super Bowl winning head coaches, I believe, were on their first stint as a head coach. It's becoming more and more common that the guy who wins the Super Bowl is on his second or third team. Belichick second team, Carroll like third team. Like, you have to fail and actually learn and change. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that Kyle's gotten there yet. Andy Reid needed that. He was at Philly for 14 years and wasn't going to get over the hump. Had to go to Kansas City, had to try again with Alex Smith and realize, man, I just need something much more firepower at the quarterback position. Even McNabb was like, he was good, but it was nothing like this. So Reed needed to go to a second spot. Kyle may ultimately need to go to a second spot, humble himself, change and learn. I don't know if he ever will.
Yeah. I actually was thinking about this just over this weekend is like that same thing, right? Like Kyle may never win a Super Bowl here. But if he goes to a place that has a quarterback for him, he might. And I was actually thinking about what teams would that work out with
here we go.
Right now?
Here we go. Let's do it.
And to me, the number one that jumps out to me is the Cowboys. They got a good roster. They got a franchise quarterback. I feel like if Kyle was on the Cowboys, they'd be a better team than they are now with McCarthy. And I could see him actually winning a Super Bowl as the Cowboys head coach, as crazy as that sounds.
That's what I'm saying. A lot of people are just like saying, like, McCarthy sucks. Hold on. Is McCarthy going to win a Super Bowl before Kyle Shanahan? Because really, what was the difference in that playoff game last year? The 2 playoff games between the Niners and Cowboys the last 2 years were very close.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it came down to a botched quarterback sneak 2 years ago, and last year it came down to Tony Pollard breaking his ankle. Like, Again, Mike McCarthy, he's not a great coach, but he has a pretty good coaching staff. He's got Dan Quinn.
One of my best friends I grew up with in the Bay Area, he somehow became a Cowboys fan. I don't know freaking how. He called into my show, and I asked him, would you rather have Mike McCarthy or Kyle Shanahan? He said Kyle Shanahan. And that's what got me thinking on this. He thinks Kyle Shanahan's a better head coach than Mike McCarthy. So I started thinking
possible.
About it.
Mike's not great. Mike is not great.
If you had Dak Prescott's abilities mixed with Kyle Shanahan's offense and then that roster they have over there, because I think the biggest thing for Kyle Shanahan is that he's outside of some game management issues, he's missing that quarterback. And he doesn't seem like he's able to find it or develop it. Well, if you give him Dak Prescott, now he might be able to pull it off.
I have a cynical prediction. If you sent Kyle Shanahan to the Cowboys, Dak Prescott would get injured.
I mean, there's a reason.
Is that a hot take? Is that a hot take? I mean, the guy's all. I mean, Mike McCarthy can't even keep him healthy. The guy is kind of a sitting duck at this point. He's slow as hell. Yeah. You think of him as a mobile quarterback. He might be he's one of the slower quarterbacks in the league, Dak Prescott. He's a pocket quarterback. When he runs, it's like
he wants to be a gunslinger, and he could probably benefit from these short, quick passes that Kyle dials up, these short, quick, wide open passes, but he has more of a threat to go deep. So I think he would benefit from Kyle's offense being able to get rid of the ball quicker and getting rid of that gunslinger mentality that he has. So I don't know. What team do you think would be better off with Kyle and could possibly win a Super Bowl if you had to name one?
It would have to be a team that has a killer offensive line right now that Kyle Shanahan couldn't blow up. But he might go over that because remember they had Trent Brown, who's like the best pass protecting right tackle in the league. And he's like, sorry, this guy just doesn't fit my run game. You're out. So I don't know. I mean, what teams have the best offensive lines? Philly, but he wouldn't want to. He couldn't coach Jalen Hurts. He would get Jalen Hurts hurt immediately. Okay, what about Detroit? They got Goff. They got a great offensive line. Maybe Detroit. Maybe if they had a little bit more sophisticated offense, although their offense was really good last year. They have a pretty good offensive quarterback.
They scored a lot of points last year.
Scored a lot of points last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Seattle will be better off with Kyle than they are with Carroll.
No.
Help me out.
Cowboys is the only one that came to my mind because they have the quarterback, they have the talent. That's the only one that jumped out to me.
What about Minnesota?
Kirk Cousins? Hey, actually, that could work. That could work.
Maybe Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, there you go.
That's one. He could. I mean, I don't think anything. What is that? Kevin O'Connell? Who the hell is Kevin O'Connell?
I don't even know. Yeah.
He's one of these like Kyle Shanahan knockoffs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Minnesota.
He's a banana hands. Yeah, he's a knockoff. He's a knockoff. So, okay, that's one. I mean, Arizona. How could you – Arizona be better off of Kyle?
They'd be better. They're not winning a Super Bowl.
Not winning a Super Bowl. Would Miami be better off of Kyle? Not necessarily.
I don't think so. I like.
Oh, I got one. I got one right now.
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Yeah, he would give them a running game. He'd give them a running game. He'd make things easier.
He would be Josh Allen would be his John Elway. Josh Allen would be the greatest thing that ever happened to Kyle Shanahan.
That's a good
Buffalo.
one. Yeah, they would.
McDermott, not a fan. Notice I did not mention Sean McDermott on my list. No.
Yeah.
Should I put Saleh on this list? Saleh just got Aaron Rodgers. And that speaks to Saleh's lack of ego.
Yeah.
Just saying.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
I think people are sleeping on the Jets. I really do.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be good as
defense is sick.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, and people are writing off Aaron Rodgers way too soon, kind of like they did Brady before he went to the Buccaneers and won a Super Bowl. I think that's what people are doing with Aaron Rodgers. I'm not.
Is he going to go there and light it up like Peyton Manning did in Denver?
Denver. Yeah, I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers is being slept on still. I don't know how he's being slept. He's a 4-time NFL MVP, and people are still writing him off because I think he lost focus in Green Bay, and I think he's going to be rejuvenated with the Jets. Maybe not long term, but I feel like this year in particular, the Jets are being slept on. Yeah.
Well, let's see if Robert Saleh can keep his quarterback healthy because last year was interesting. Kyle Shanahan and his disciples all failed keeping their quarterbacks healthy. Like McDaniel failed spectacularly.
Yeah.
Saleh quietly went through all of his quarterbacks, and so did Kyle. So now Salah's got a 39-year-old quarterback. Let's see what you do, man.
I could, but with Saleh is different because with McDaniel I can understand because he's in charge of the offense. With who else? We're talking about McVay, I can understand because he's in charge of the offense. But with Saleh, he's the defensive coordinator. Is he going to be? Is he really responsible for protecting the quarterback? I don't know.
Yeah, man, head coach, absolutely. I mean, that's your offensive coordinator. You have the opportunity to veto any call. You okay every game plan. That's on you. What's that?
Coordinator on the Jets.
They fired Matt LaFleur. Who is the Jets offensive coordinator? Oh, it's Hackett. Freaking Hackett.
Hackett?
But Hackett has worked with Rodgers in the past. So that's why they have Hackett.
Because that offense looked all Hackett from the Broncos. Fired at
right, but Hackett got the job with the Broncos because he was the offensive coordinator with Rodgers in Green Bay. Again, Rodgers is the offensive coordinator. That's the answer. Aaron Rodgers.
True.
And again, like you can make fun of that, but at least Hackett and Saleh have a small enough ego to allow Rodgers to do that. Kyle, I don't think could ever work with Rodgers. Yeah. So he's working with Sam Darnold because Sam Darnold will say, sir, yes, sir.
That may be why he didn't want Tom Brady. I could definitely see that as a reason why he was not messing with, why he chose Jimmy Garoppolo over Tom Brady. If Kyle Shannon,
let me give you. Oh, keep going.
If Kyle Shanahan doesn't win a Super Bowl, and we all look back on his career, that he's the guy that chose Jimmy Garoppolo over Tom Brady. That is crazy.
Hold on, crazy. But let's stick with this game with teams that would improve with Kyle Shanahan as the head coach. I got a list. Okay, here we go. Serious. Cleveland. We got Buffalo, Cleveland Browns. What's that guy's name? Stefanski? Forget that guy.
Yeah.
Fraud. Titans. Vrabel has the worst offensive coordinators every year. Yeah. Titans. The Raiders.
Jimmy.
The Chargers for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Him with Herbert would be nice. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
The Saints for sure. Dennis Allen sucks. Like sucks.
Yeah.
I can't say that strongly enough. I didn't go in NPR. I should have.
But which one is win a Super Bowl? I mean, there's a lot of teams that'll improve. Like more than half of the teams will improve with Kyle Shanahan. But which one actually could win a Super Bowl? I think you brought up a good one with Herbert and the Chargers. Yep. I think the Cowboys are there. Minnesota's there. Buffalo.
I wouldn't say the Giants. I wouldn't say the Giants.
No, I don't.
What about Green Bay?
They'll improve. They're not going to win no damn Super Bowl. No, I don't see it. No.
Yeah. No, I think Kyle should go to Buffalo somehow. The Niners should trade Kyle to Buffalo for 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 3rd, 4th, 7th.
They would be good. They would be elite.
Yeah, I would do that. All right, let's talk about something else. Does George Kittle talk too much? Like, he talks a lot. And that's great. You know, it's like a media guy's dream. He's always available. But it's just how he talks. Like, he talks like he's the coach of the team and the general manager of the team and the scout. Like, he talks about all other players. He critiques them. He was at tight end U. He said that Sam Laporta was the best tight end in the draft. Like, the Niners drafted a tight end. Like, Cam Latu is on your team and Sam Laporta is not. And you're over here talking about him like you know him just because he went to Iowa or something. It's like, I don't know. He speaks very freely. What do you think?
Yeah, yes and no. Yes. One thing he definitely should not talk about, he shouldn't be talking about who you're starting anything is. You're not the coach.
You're not the coach.
Not like the nerve of that. Like I'm a coach. If one of my players was like, "Oh, he should be starting," he's the like, dude, that's not your role.
Not at all.
Not be talking about who's starting at what position. You should just say, "Hey, we're gonna let it play out. That's Kyle's decision. That's above my pay grade. I think we got 3 good quarterbacks. We'll see how it plays out and what Kyle decides."
I agree.
You're not the head coach.
He talks about his teammates way too much.
Yes.
Like he's not one of them. Like he's above them. That's the way it comes across. Like, I'm not just your teammate. I'm your coach too. I understand the scheme just like Kyle. I've been here longer. I'm like a senior member of the team, and I can talk. I can evaluate you publicly on the record. You couldn't do that to me. All you have to say is, "Oh yeah, George is the greatest.
Yeah,
he's the GOAT." But you, I'm like, "Oh man, that guy's so much better than he was last year." Because honestly, this year though, he's definitely making strides. Like, wow.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I don't think that's being a good teammate.
He talks like a coach when he goes on national media and talks like he's a coach. That's not his place. And there's something about the comfortability that he has with Kyle Shanahan that is leading to a lot of this, I think. Like, he's too comfortable.
Agree. It's a Kyle issue again.
Yeah.
Going back to the head coach, why is your tight end talking like this? Well, it's a I'm not gonna say it's a failure of leadership, but it is. It's a failure of leadership. I'm not saying you have failed completely as a leader, but this is one example where you need to do better. You should be sitting down with your tight end and being like, man, you're smart, you're great, we love you. You can't talk like this publicly. You're undermining me,
right,
and the team. Yeah, you understand that.
That's why.
Let me talk.
Yeah,
I'm the voice. You're not the voice of the team. I'm the voice of the team.
Yeah,
you're the voice of you.
Yeah, he can be.
I'm the voice of the team.
Yeah. Be complimentary of his teammates. I don't have a problem with that. But when you start talking about who's starting and who's the that's
it's definitely Brock starting. Oh yeah, it's definitely
Brock's our starter.
That's not your call.
I mean, that may be true, and he may deserve it. And I agree, based on if he's healthy, based on how he played last year, he should be starting. But it's not your role to talk about it. Let Kyle Shanahan. All you need to do is take what your PR people tell you, and they're obviously not telling him anything. But in general, the generic statement is, that's above my pay grade. I'm not the coach. We'll let him decide, but I like all three of my quarterbacks.
Also, something with him, I feel like he talks a lot, so he's constantly promoting himself in different podcasts and stuff. He talks about the Niners quarterback situation because he puts himself above it. You never hear him talk about Deebo. You never hear him talk about like other players on the team who are kind of in competition with him for touches. Like, as far as George is concerned, I don't know if Deebo even exists. So I feel like when you start analyzing how he talks and who he talks about and who he doesn't talk about, it gets really weird. And he should probably just stick to tight end stuff, and that's it. I don't know. Keep the opponent.
Keep it
generic. Yeah. I hate to say that because, you want a player to be,
as a media person, you want him.
You want that.
You want that.
But like the more he talks, I'm like, man, I just feel like it's kind of messed up what you're doing. I feel like it's kind of not right. But I don't know. Maybe people disagree. All right, last thing. Speaking of Deebo. Is Deebo a team player? Like, is he really a team player? Or is his ego too big? I'm sorry to put it that way, but here's the way I look at it. Ever since last year's meltdown, I've been trying to figure out where he's coming from. Before then, it's like he would do anything for the team, right? That was his persona. You need to play running back? Whatever. I'll do it for the team. Great. But then it was like, I need to be the highest paid wide receiver in the league. Well, you haven't really earned that yet. And then you held out. And now you don't practice in the offseason. And you say stuff like, well, I wasn't in the best shape last year, but now I'm going to be. You're not even the face of the offense anymore. In 2021, it all went through him. He loved it. He deserved it. Last year, he forfeited it. He fumbled that right. They brought in McCaffrey, and now it's McCaffrey's offense. And someday, this might be, at a certain point, I could pass him up too. If he becomes a second, third, fourth option, is he going to take that in stride because he's gotten paid? Or will his ego not allow him? Is this going to be could he become a malcontent at some point if Kyle doesn't keep giving him 9 touches a game that he hasn't earned?
When I look at Deebo, I feel like his priority was the money. And I feel like since he's got paid, he probably cares less about those things. And now maybe it'll resurface when he's on his last year in his contract again. But I feel like particularly this first time around, Deebo was balling out. One, because I feel like he's kind of just that dog mentality a little bit in games. When the whistle blows, right? Not in the offseason, unfortunately. But when the whistle blows, I feel like he is competitive like that. And also, I think he was going after that bag, that life-changing money for him. Now, if he's the third guy, I don't see him as a guy that really cares, to be honest with you. I think he'll be like, whatever, I'm making.
See, that's my problem. Million. I feel like he plays like a guy who doesn't really care anymore. Like the way he jogged through that ghost motion on the play action in Philly, like the way he plays when he's not getting the ball. If he knows that he's not featured in that game plan that week, what are you getting from Deebo? That's scary to me. You're giving this guy like $25 million a year, and he only really plays hard when he feels he's being featured. Like, that's the kind of stuff Odell Beckham Jr. used to do when he was in his prime. If you didn't give him the ball a lot in the first quarter, he would pout, check out. And coaches were constantly in his mercy, like, I got to get him the ball. I got to give him the ball. I got to move. It's like, man, the Niners don't work that way. The Niners have a bunch of really good playmakers, and it's supposed to be like the ball goes wherever the defense isn't. Like, if you overcommit to stop Deebo, we're going to McCaffrey. Like, and you have to be okay with that. Ayuk's okay with that. Ayuk keeps his mouth shut. I'm not saying that Deebo doesn't, but Ayuk has been in this position for a long time where he's at the bottom of the totem pole and he can't really say anything about it. What if that happens to Deebo? Because frankly, he was the worst of them last year. If he's in a very talented weapon group. If he doesn't have his A game on, he doesn't deserve to be the top dog. And I don't think he is the top dog anymore. And how does he feel about that? He wanted to be the highest paid wide receiver in the league. I don't know.
So 2 things. You brought up Ayuk. I think you're going to see more of that from Ayuk this year because this is the year where he's going to get paid. So he's going to want the ball this year.
Ayuk gets more touches, a full year of McCaffrey. Where does that leave Kittle and Deebo?
Well, to Deebo's credit, he did come out and admit he was trash last year. That was his words. He was awful last year. And so I respect that accountability. And really, we'll see. I mean, the year before, he was amazing. It was a contract year. Then after he got paid,
right,
it wasn't there. So I don't know if I see him having an ego problem as much as like it's a motivation thing that he kind of lost when he didn't get paid. But again, to his credit, he took accountability. He says you're never going to see that from him again. So I feel like this is a year where he can prove that he's that hardworking, good teammate, and it doesn't matter if you pay me, I'm still going to come out and give you my best. This is the year.
Also, I want to see from him be like, it doesn't matter if I get 3 targets this week. Because they never treat him like that. They always force him the ball even if he's dropping it, even if he's not getting open. Sometimes he doesn't have it. Ayuk does, Kittle does, and it's just like not your week, Deebo. I'd like to see him be okay with that because I feel like Kyle almost treats him like,
he
like
should be okay with it now, though. I mean, he's set for life. His grandkids are set for life.
He should be.
Right. So now it should just be about winning a Super Bowl. That's all he should care about. He should be the ultimate teammate. And he should just, doesn't matter how many touches you get. It's what you do with the touches that you do get when you get them. Right. And that should be his priority. So we'll see. I mean, this is the year we'll find out.
Josh Wyatt says, I see a huge range for this year's team. Everything from 13-4 to 14 and 13-4 to 4-13. Because you play out the best and worst case scenarios is the key really quarterback. Worst case scenario is, you want to go first? Go ahead.
Wow. Worst case
scenario is Brock doesn't start the season. He's on PUP. Kyle's not invested in either quarterback. They start off on a losing streak. Kyle uses that as an excuse and tanks. That's the thing about Kyle. Like Mike Tomlin will soldier through a season and find a way to win 9 games. Kyle will tank because I think he knows he's not going to get fired. So he's like, whatever. Brandon Allen time.
Worst case scenario is that Brock Purdy was a flash in the pan, that Trey Lance is a bust like everyone says, or not everyone, but a lot of people say, and that they don't have a quarterback and they're relying on turnover Sam Darnold or Brandon Allen this season. That's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, the best case scenario for me, I know people aren't going to like it. The best case scenario is that the highest potential quarterback on the team that you drafted 3rd overall, Trey Lance, comes out and balls out. That's the best case scenario that I see.
Papa Phil says Kyle lost to a first-year coach against the Bears. Not just a first-year coach. That was his first game ever coaching. Robert Tuncap says Brock will not be ready by training camp, which begins barely 4 months after his surgery. Niners will not risk injury way too soon.
Yeah.
Probably. Kyle's going to Kyle injuries on the way, says Papa Phil. It's basically my working hypothesis. Matthew Sanders says Kyle stepped in poop when Purdy saved the season. If not for the most impressive Mr. Relevant ever, the conversation would be very different today. Yeah. Jason Hagar says Kyle would never go to the Cowboys while Jones is alive. Wouldn't have enough control there. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, this might be what he needs, but he's never going to go for that. Papa Phil says y'all tripping. Deebo is an ultimate team player. He came back from injury for us. He cried when we lost. He actually cares.
I think it's TBD. I think it's TBD this season, Papa Phil. I think the first year when not his first year, but the year he really balled out, the year before last, it was a contract year, man. He's playing for life-changing money for his family, as he should. And then last year, we didn't see that from him after he got paid. He came in out of shape. He didn't look like Deebo. Now's the year, like you came out and said you played like trash. Well, put it all together this year, man. You got your bag. Show us that you care about the team, the Super Bowl, and he can do that.
I just feel he's a little immature. I think he showed it last year during the negotiation. I think he also has a little bit of an inflated sense of the kind of player he is. I think he thinks he's better than he is.
Don't all wide receivers.
So if Kyle Shanahan starts giving him the touches that he actually deserves, that he thinks he deserves, How's Deebo going to handle that? Because for the last 2 years, Kyle's pretty much said, hey, man, whatever you want, I got you. Just be happy. But, like, that's not in the team's best interest anymore. Ayuk needs more touches. McCaffrey's better than Deebo. Deebo should be, like, the third option on this team right now. Is he cool with that? We'll see. He could say it, but he'll have to prove it.
And something came up, too. Like, if CMC goes down, hopefully he doesn't, knock on wood. But if something happens to CMC, Deebo's going to be crucial again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anyway.
So you got to be ready.
Got to stay ready. Ryan, good show. What you got going on the rest of the day, week, year?
I got a show tomorrow at 10 a.m. And Friday, noon. Calling show Sunday. That's my schedule during the off season. Nothing else today but grinding, working, selling houses.
Grinded. Beautiful. Love it. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll be back at 2:30 with Larry. Hold on. Please go back and look at the first games of the season. He scored the first touchdown of our season.
Okay.
Great player. Very good player. Ramelia Sports Report says regular season Deebo nice, but 3 NFC championships, 1 TD, 151 yards. Hey, man, Kyle needs to give him the damn ball.
Deebo's a ram killer, so I don't know if you should be commenting on that one.
I'm heading out while we can. Thanks for